It's time for Health Futures with Cypress HomeCare Solutions, Bob Roth. This is Arizona's only show dedicated to providing you with expert advice on how to live a longer, healthier, and happier life. To learn more, call 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Bob Roth.
Good afternoon. You're listening to Health Futures. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and we're coming at you live from the Scottsdale Air Park. And it is Friday, May the 12th. And we are talking women's health and men's health today. And if you missed our show last Friday, I had a gentleman by the name of Dr. Bert Webb, and he's from Scottsdale Center for Women's Health and Vitality Hormones for Men. And today I had to have his business partner, Dr. Russell Bartels, here on the show with us today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bob. It's great to be here, and it's been great to be helping the men and women of Scottsdale and the surrounding areas for about 15 years when I joined Dr. Webb at that time.
Well, it's good to have you, and if you're just tuning into our show for the very first time, Health Futures is exactly what it sounds like. It is really about how our older adult population can live a healthier, happier life. And how do we do that? We do that by bringing extraordinary guests. And, you know, really talking about men's and women's health is something that sometimes can be really, taken very privately, and it's something that people like to whisper about and don't really want to talk about. And we really need to get this stuff out in the open, because a lot of the challenges that adults and older adults have are challenges that many others are feeling as well. So if you missed our episode, I encourage you to go to cypresshomecare.com, click on the media button, and then click on the radio show button, and you'll hear our episode from last week. And I will tell you, Dr. Bert Webb talked a lot about women's health and talked a lot about, obviously vagina, and talked a lot about how intercourse shouldn't be painful, and talked about a lot of the challenges women have and the stigma that is associated with it. And, Dr. Bartels, and if I can call you Ross, I'd like to call you Ross.
Sure, please do.
And, with you here today, while you are a gynecologist, mm-hmm. You also focus a lot of time and energy on men's health.
I do, and it's been that way for about 8 years or so is when I took men into the practice. And it was at the urging of the female patients that I was treating for the previous years. We would get the women optimized and feeling great, and they would ask me if I could do the same for their husbands. And for years I said, it's not what I do. I'm a gynecologist, and he should see his primary care doc or a urologist. And
right.
What I found was that these guys just weren't either making that step, or they were and were being told, unfortunately, maybe not the greatest advice. It's life. You have to live with it. And whether that's erectile dysfunction or other issues, they were just being told as part of life and getting older. And it was about 8 years ago that I took over a practice, a hormone practice that had about 40% men in it, and it was game on. It was time to treat the men like I was treating the women, get them optimized. And it is fantastic how many relationships actually we've helped salvage and make prosper. You really want the man and the woman on the same page as they go forward through life, and we can do great things. Now, it's very important. We can't go out and grab you out of your house and bring you in. You got to come in and see us. But Dr. Webb and myself are really good at helping patients open up about some of these topics that they might not want to otherwise. I feel it's my duty, my job as a physician treating men and women, to ask the questions that I know are on those patients' minds, but maybe they're a little shy or hesitant to bring those up. And so once we break that ice, I think we have great bedside manner. Dr. Webb is fantastic. I hope that came across last week. And I'd like to say the same about myself. I'll leave that to the audience and my patients. But I think we do a great job of making patients feel comfortable and really getting into some good conversations about things that are bothering patients that we can actually make a difference about.
It's interesting when we were talking about women and sexual dysfunction that they were going through. It doesn't have to be that way, and women compartmentalize these things. And one of the things that Dr. Webb was talking about is how incredible women are and how incredibly resilient they are. And, I was talking about how I have a practice mainly full of women in my office. I've got 9 women, and some of them are single moms. And, I mean, they're my heroes. I mean, I could never do some of the stuff that they do. I mean, not only do they work hard in their jobs, but they come home and take care of kids, and they do homework, and then they fall asleep and do it all over again. And they're in that hamster wheel, if you would, and doing it over and over again. And women typically like to talk about just about everything. And, they'll share their whole life challenges and their life's successes. But, sometimes intimacy is something that's very private. And as much as women don't talk about it, men are even worse. Men don't like to talk about this stuff.
You hit it on the nose. And I tell you, there's a lot of men that I see that I walk into the room and I can sense a little, they don't really want to be there. And I kind of say, I guess, did your wife make you come in? And, not most of the time, but enough times, it's, my wife's a patient, on the female side of the practice.
Right.
And she's been bugging me for, a few months to come in. And as long as we got that out of the, got that taken care of, it's like we can open up. And I say, hey, look, bottom line is maybe there's nothing wrong with you. But let's just dot the I's and cross the T's. Let's get some blood work. Let's hear about symptoms. And it's amazing how these guys, when they're, walk in the door, they're real kind of closed off. Hey, now we're having a great conversation. It's because I'm there for them. It doesn't matter to me if they don't want any help, but I'd like to help them. So I open that door up and they come in and we break some cool ground and we make some good progress. And we find things that they didn't necessarily know could be better. They're like, oh, this is how life is. This is how living is. And we say, well, you can go on that way if you'd like, or perhaps let's do some things and let's improve that. Let's optimize. You want about optimization. You'll hear me say that over and over.
And what's interesting is, you can relate to them because you have the same equipment they do.
Right.
And you know how it's supposed to work.
Right.
And they can share with you with some of the challenges they're dealing with. You know, my oldest is 25 years old. And I'll never forget when I got her first computer, I don't know, 6, 7 years old, and that was back when we had the dial-up,
right.
And you were going through a modem. She would get these emails, and she would get emails about erectile dysfunctions.
I knew where you were going
it was
with that.
unbelievable. Yep. And I'm a big sports fan, and I was telling Dr. Webb this, I love watching, now it's NHL hockey, and it's baseball and basketball, and every other commercial I'm seeing, it's a Cialis commercial.
Yeah.
It's a Viagra commercial. And it's not just happened. It's happened over the last 15 years.
Right. They used to be on later at night. Now they're on, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, it seems.
And I didn't realize there was such an epidemic out there called erectile dysfunction. But you know what? I think what that has done is it's really started the conversation.
It has. It's, there's a few key words, these brands that people know of for these medications, and they might just feel comfortable throwing that out to me. But just to take it back a few steps, that, yes, I'm a man, I can relate to the men, but I can also relate to the women. And that's an important point I want to make because, I am a gynecologist and we do treat women. And even though I haven't given birth, I've delivered a lot of babies.
Right.
And I've taken care of a lot of women going through that and their well woman exams and routine gynecologic stuff. So I just want to, and not that you didn't think otherwise.
No, I didn't.
But it is a good point to make that I can empathize with the women, even though I don't have the equipment, because I've experienced enough hearing and treating that I can relate.
Well, and I said it only because I think men have that stigma, and men are like, if you were a female doctor, you don't really understand,
right,
but you do understand, and that is because men don't really want to talk about it, women do,
right, and women are okay talking about it with men, like a male physician or a female physician.
Right.
I think men feel more comfortable, like you were alluding to, talking to a man about these issues.
And I'm going to share before we make this break,
sure,
and this is why I believe I do from the gender standpoint is I'm in the home care business and we care for older adults. And I will tell you, women are sometimes okay with male caregivers.
Right.
And especially when it comes to personal care and hygiene and all that other stuff. But men with female caregivers, it's a little challenging.
Yeah.
So, it's crossing that line. Well, we are up against a break. Russ, and we are just breaking ground. I want to get into the next segment, talk a little bit about your background and how you and Dr. Burt Webb got together to really form Scottsdale Center for Women's Health and Vitality Hormones for Men.
Sounds great.
You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and we are talking women's health, men's health, and I've got Dr. Russell Bartels here in the studio. We will be right back.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress HomeCare Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures. This is segment number 2, and we are coming at you live from the Scottsdale Air Park. And it is Friday, May the 12th. And if you're just tuning in, I've got Dr. Russell Bartels here in the studio. And he is with Scottsdale Center for Women's Health, as well as Vitality Hormones for Men. And last week, I had his business partner, Dr. Burt Webb, in the studio. And we were talking primarily women's health. And when we left off at the last segment, we were talking about men's health and some of the things that you do over your practice. So I wanted to, really take a moment right now, if I could, is really talk about, really where you're at now.
Sure.
And how you got to where you are and how you created this practice. You talked a little bit about it in the last segment.
Well, it's been an interesting road. I mean, I came to Scottsdale 15 years ago, joined Dr. Webb, who had a fantastic reputation. I was really excited to join him in his practice, and it was the two of us. And we were in a small office down in Old Town, and to me it was the most greatest experience coming from Michigan and excited to get into practice. And
the weather's a little bit better.
A little bit better than in Michigan, for sure. And but it was a very traditional practice, obstetrics and gynecology, basically nothing else. And that was great. That's what I was trained to do, and that's what I enjoyed doing. And over the years, well, we outgrew that space pretty quickly. We moved up the 101 a little bit to off Via de Ventura, much larger space. But along the way, I was kind of interested in what our patients wanted out of us. And if we could do more things for them while they were in for their routine things that we did so well, obstetrics and gynecology. And they were interested in Botox and fillers and some aesthetics. I said, hey, you know what? If they're getting it elsewhere, we can do it while they wait for their well-woman exam. Great. Well, that kind of expanded into, well, now they want laser hair removal. They want other things. And understand, we still were focused on the medicine first and foremost. And we would hire people to do the aesthetics for us.
That's what I was going to ask you.
And they're excellent at what they do. But I never lost focus, and still haven't, of the medicine, the medical aspects of things we do. So again, we continued to grow. We expanded other service lines. We outgrew that space, moved into another. And at this point, it was interesting how, as I alluded to, the women, because I got a lot more focus in hormones, bioidentical hormones. And initially, not taught in the residency programs. It's interesting. I initially learned from my patients who happened to be getting bioidentical hormones. Opened my eyes up to a whole nother world. Bioidentical hormones.
What is bioidentical hormones?
Well, strictly speaking, it's giving you hormones that are identical in structure and function to the hormones that you produce throughout your lifetime, instead of a synthetic hormone that will bind to the receptor of the bioidentical hormone, but not in exactly the same way. So, there's skeleton keys that'll open up every door in this office, okay? But it's just not an exact fit.
Got it.
And the bioidentical hormones match identically into the receptors and trigger the appropriate responses with fewer side effects. So, bioidentical hormones, initially got interested from some of my patients. Took it upon myself to educate myself, and I've attended so many conferences. I actually teach on the topic. I've become, an expert on this topic of bioidentical hormones, and it's just a much better way of administering hormone therapy, and we don't do synthetics basically ever. But big focus on hormone therapy, getting my female patients really optimized. And like I alluded to, we had to bring men into the practice because they just weren't getting the attention that they needed, or at least our our female patients' husbands and boyfriends and loved ones. So that was the next kind of big change for our practice, bringing the men into it. And then a few years of that, focusing more and more on that. Obstetrics, as beautiful as it is, I just felt like I was going to shift gears a little bit and focus more on bioidentical hormone therapy and office gynecology. And so it was a very tough decision, but gave up obstetrics about 2 years ago and was able to focus more of my time on the hormone therapy and other aspects of gynecologic care. A lot of focus on rejuvenation of the bladder. And that's a kind of a term that I've said several times, and it's not really out there in the world, but bladder rejuvenation. You've heard of vaginal rejuvenation.
Right.
Which was an interesting term going back 5-10 years ago when it kind of started making the rounds from TV and Dr. 90210 and so forth. But bladder and vaginal rejuvenation kind of go hand in hand. And so there's been more of a focus on that in my practice over the more recent past, the past 5 years or so. And we actually went out to Beverly Hills and trained with some of the doctors that were on that show, Dr. 90210, and brought surgical vaginal and bladder rejuvenation to Scottsdale. We were the first ones doing it here. Everyone thought we were crazy, but
it makes sense.
It makes sense.
We're an aging demographic, and we have a lot of people living in our community that need help.
Yeah, and whether that was for sexual gratification or sexual dysfunction, or it was actual lifestyle issues of bladder leaking.
Right.
So initially we had surgical procedures that we did for that, and we still do those in the more severe cases, but we're always growing. We're always looking for the next best thing, and I'm a big proponent of non-surgical alternatives to common gynecologic problems that usually required surgery. So we have a couple of neat things in our office now, some of these state-of-the-art devices using either laser or radio frequency that can really do wonders for vaginal health.
Wow.
And bladder health.
Bladder health. And when you were talking about bioidentical hormone therapy, you're talking about non-synthetic.
Right.
And you're talking about their delivery systems, and I read up some of the stuff that you had. You can have it delivered in a number of different ways.
Right. And so I do a lot of pellet therapy, and I would say going back a few years ago, there was one main group that did that in town, and basically I was the second, Dr. Webb as well in our group. And, we've kind of grown and grown and grown. There's been a lot of imitators and people joining in for good reason. It's a good, healthy way of delivering hormone therapy through pellet therapy placed under the skin. But you want to make sure you go to people who know what they're doing.
Right.
And so that's kind of what sets us apart as experts in this area. It's, there's a lot of people who go to a weekend course and they come back on Monday and they start putting pellets in people. They don't know what dose is, what the complications are. And so it is very safe. I want to emphasize safety first and foremost, but you want to go to people who know what they're doing. And so we do place little tiny pellets of estrogen and or testosterone and painlessly under the skin.
Where do they typically get placed?
Typically in the kind of the hip, buttock area, upper buttock.
Got it.
And we numb you up. It's very easy to do. It's basically painless, and it lasts for about 3 to 4 months for women.
And it dissolves. You don't have to pull them out.
Correct. Nothing to take out. And so for the women, about 3 to 4 months it lasts. And for men, that we do just testosterone. We don't want to give them estrogen, but we give them testosterone pellets, and it lasts for about 4 to 5 months typically for the men. A nice way of putting it in, forgetting about it, and letting the hormones do their work.
That's really, this whole hormone thing is very, very interesting. And, we're getting up, it's hard to believe we're almost at halftime. But, one of the things I want to just conclude this segment, and we'll pick up on the third segment, is, we talked about erectile dysfunction and what the pharmacy companies have done for drawing awareness to it, Cialis and Viagra, just to name two of them. In these last couple of years, we've been hearing ads for low T. And, they've really drawn awareness to the fact that, men don't talk about their health.
Right.
But there are a lot of men that have low testosterone.
Absolutely. It's opened up the discussion.
It is. And really, I want to really talk about testosterone therapy for men. And, I talked a little bit about with it, Dr. Webb. I am hitting double nickel in a couple months. And 9:30, 10 o'clock rolls around, and I am starting to get really, really tired. I went into my primary care physician. He checked my testosterone, said I'm well within the range. But I will tell you, Dr. Webb, and you concur, the range is like 250 to 1100.
Yeah.
And while I was in, I think, the low threes, I'm in that range. I could benefit from maybe some of this therapy. So
absolutely. Let's talk about that in the next segment.
I'll tell you what, Wes, Boston, really great job taking us out with Boston. We're at halftime at Health Futures, taking stock in you. I've got Dr. Russell Bartels here. We'll be right back.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress HomeCare Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, taking stock in you. And we're on our third segment here, and it is Friday, May the 12th, 2017. And I am privileged to have Dr. Russell Bartels here in the studio. He is from Scottsdale Center for Women's Health and Vitality Hormones for Men. And if you missed the first two segments, go up to our website at cypresshomecare.com, click on the media button, and then the drop-down arrow will give you the radio show, Health Futures, and you can navigate to those first two segments that you missed here today. And you really do want to hear those segments, and you can listen to about 160 others we've been bringing you for the last 4 years. I was privileged to have Dr. Bartels' business partner, Dr. Bert Webb, on last week. We were talking a lot about female health, vaginal health, and today we're talking about vaginal health, but we're also talking a lot about men. And we're talking about hormone therapy, and if you missed our first two segments, we ended the last segment talking about testosterone. And I brought to the attention of Dr. Bartels about low T. And Russ, I keep seeing these low T commercials, and I talked about, just as we closed the second half, about how I got tested.
Right.
And I'm in like the low 300s, and my doctor said, you're in the range.
Right.
You're good. And I'm like, well, give me some of that, because I'm having a hard time staying up. I'm not having ED issues.
Right.
But I'm definitely feeling lethargy and tired.
Yeah. So low T, there's a lot of word out there on the radio and in TV. It's not a passing fad. It's a real thing. Testosterone levels are dropping worldwide. We don't know exactly why. There's some theories out there. But low T is not just about erections. It's about much more. And in fact, most of the patients that come and see me, the erections are probably the fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth thing that we talk about, because there's many other reasons that they're coming in. Fatigue. Actually, it's more about I just don't have the drive I used to. I get home from work, I'm exhausted. The libido is down. I can't concentrate. A lot of brain fog. Many symptoms: headaches, migraines, body aches, joint pains. I mean, the aging process can be linked a lot to hormone deficiencies. Testosterone is a powerful hormone, and if I could really just give men and women one thing, it would be testosterone, because it solves so many other problems that you don't need to treat if you prevent it in the first place.
Wow.
It's powerful.
It is.
Yeah.
And it is a great therapy, but let's face it, there are a lot of people out there doing a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. And, you mentioned the top of the show talking about Botox and Restylane and stuff like that. And there are people doing hormone therapy. And, I don't have to tell you this. They're whether they're dentists, whether they're nurses, whether they're just your regular, middle of the guy. It could be an optician that goes to a weekend course.
Right. Hopefully not.
And then all of a sudden opens up their door. And I think the one thing that appeals to me, having you here on the show, is both you and Dr. Webb are MDs. You guys are doctors. You're surgeons.
Right.
And you're doing some of these other things under your watch.
Right. Yeah, it is important to go to providers that are experts in their field. And that's truly what we are and all that we do. And there are some things that we delegate to other practitioners in our practice that are experts in what they do. For instance, you don't want me doing your Botox. We have somebody who's expert in that.
Right.
So everything we do in our office is done under our watch, but we have good experts doing it. But back to the testosterone and how it's a very important hormone for men and women. And you alluded to ED, and you don't have to have ED to have low testosterone, but a lot of men have many of the symptoms of low testosterone, and they bring it up. Believe it or not, they actually get in to see a doctor because they finally have waited 6 months to finally get up and go to the doctor after the wife has told them to, and then they finally get tested, and their levels are suboptimal, but they are told that they are normal. It's fine. Hey, you're 50, 55, 60. This is what it is supposed to be.
Right.
And 250 to 1100 is the range for total testosterone. So if you're at 251, you're considered normal. If you're at 249, you're abnormal. No, it's a spectrum, and you want to be at the upper end of that spectrum. And it's a very safe hormone to work with. So that's what makes it a lot of fun too, is that if someone's in the, the lower mid range and they have a lot of the symptoms I think are associated with low testosterone, we can bring them up very easily, quickly, over the next few weeks to a few months. You want to give it a good probably 2 months to know. And if your problems got better, it probably was related to the low testosterone. If they didn't, and I'll tell you, most of the time these problems do get better, or things they didn't know were problems do get better, and they didn't realize it was a problem in the first place. But it's a safe hormone to work with, and we can do a lot of good with it. And it's very rare that we start somebody on testosterone and it doesn't make them feel better to the point where they want to continue it. It's rare that people try it and go, nah, that didn't really do it for me. At least that's the patients that come and see me. I mean, they're obviously wanting something to make them feel better, and that's really what it's about. It's about trying things that are safe and seeing if they help patients. And it's not just about testosterone. When I see patients, we're checking thyroid and other vitamin levels and so forth too.
But it's interesting. There's a lot of benefits from testosterone. We talked a little bit before we even kicked off the show. But I would imagine, one thing that older adults, and that's what we deal with at Cypress HomeCare, and we talk a lot about this here on the show. One of the things that older adults deal with is depression.
Yeah. Amazing.
And I'm wondering, does testosterone help in that area?
I'm not going to say every time, because there's a lot of reasons for potential, reasons to be clinically depressed. But I would say it's a fantastic way to start and see if it helps, because do you really want to be on the Prozacs and the antidepressant kind of medications with all the side effects that they have? So it's not unusual for patients to come in on those medications because they were told they were depressed, when in fact it was a hormone imbalance. And so one of my goals when I see these types of patients is to introduce testosterone, get them feeling well, and then peel off those other medications, whether it's antidepressants or erectile medications, or in sometimes cholesterol medications, hypertension medications, anti-inflammatory medications. It's amazing how testosterone can have benefit in all that realm of different disease processes. And so, again, I don't want to make it sound like it's a cure-all.
No.
But it does help a lot in many situations.
I think, like anything, just awareness and knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And, I encourage our listening audience to do your research. And I will tell you, Dr. Bartels and Dr. Webb have a phenomenal reputation here in town. They've won a number of awards. So, these are guys that have been recognized by their peers as well as consumers. So they're people that you can trust. And certainly I want to give just a quick shout out before we go to a break here.
Sure.
If they needed to reach you, what's the best way to reach you? I know I gave out last week Scottsdale Center for Women's Health. I think that's the
well, that's the name of our practice. Yeah. The website would be ScottsdaleWomen'sHealth.com.
ScottsdaleWomen'sHealth.com.
And also VitalityHormones.com.
Okay.
And those are easy ways to reach us. Our phone number is 480-425-8700. But, any of those modes of communication, we'd be happy for you to contact us. It really is take that first step to come in and see us, and we'll take it from there.
And I want to get into our next segment, talk about evidence-based medicine, and that's the big buzzword that we all talk about. And, there are a lot of ailments that our older adults have, and it's really important to know that you have someone that you really trust, someone that's got a great reputation. And there's stuff that is, new breakthroughs that are happening every day. And I think I want to, lead our listening audience to really tune into this 4th segment, because we're going to come at you with some really good stuff that Dr. Bartels and Dr. Webb is doing today in their practice. You're listening to Health Futures Taking Stock in You. We're up against a break. We're down 3. We've got one more to go. Dr. Bartels, we'll be right back.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, Call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, taking stock in you. We're on our fourth segment, and I'm going to just jump right in because we've got a lot of ground to cover here. And if you're just tuning in right now, I've got Dr. Russell Bartels from Scottsdale Center for Women's Health and Vitality Hormones for Men. His business partner, Dr. Webb, was on just last week. They provide incredible patient and personalized care, individualized care. They use technology and innovation treatment options, and they are using robotic surgical techniques, AKA Da Vinci.
Right. We're always trying to advance with the times, and there's that certain comfort when you get on a plane and the pilot has a little gray hair, but sometimes he's still flying the older planes. And so what I'm getting at is that, look, we are always advancing, looking for the next thing. And it's important to advance with the times. And our practice is not stuck practicing old stuff. We are constantly advancing.
You're constantly advancing, but you know what? One of the things that I really appreciate what you shared with our listening audience in the previous segments, and if you missed them, go up to our website at cypresshomecare.com, go to the media button, click on the radio show button, and you can hear the first three segments. But one of the things that you talked about is that you used to deliver babies, used to do full gynecological work, OB work. And, the thing I appreciate about what you and Dr. Webb have done is that you have a sign of the times. We're an aging demographic. You realize that, there aren't as many births as they used to be back 20, 30, 40 years ago. We have an older demographic. We have women and men that are having health issues in areas that you're already in. So you're working on solutions for those individuals to help them. And you've bolted on a number of different service lines to the work that you do.
Yeah. And I'm aging along with my patients.
Right.
So my interests also change, and I'm interested in my own self-preservation and living healthy. And I try to educate myself for my own benefit, but then I can take that knowledge and apply it to my patients. And so my patients have changed along with me. And I gave up obstetrics, but now I'm focusing more on some of the older demographic as well. And the hormone therapy is a huge part of what I do. But, we can't stop the aging process, right? But we can age well, right? We're trying. and we can do some pretty incredible things in that process.
Well, we can. And one of the things before we jump back into some of the service lines you have is, let's face it, and I am not a clinician at all, and I sometimes subscribe to this. It's exercise and diet. It plays such a major role in how you feel and your health, correct?
That's the number 1 and 2 prescription I could write.
Right.
And unfortunately for most of America, that's not what they want to hear.
No.
And, I kind of emphasize those two things. I try to correct everything that I can that's wrong with the patient hormonally, but ultimately they need to take on some responsibility. Right. And I tell them that. I said, there's only so much I can do. I said, you have some homework, and they don't necessarily want to hear that. But, if they're not eating right and they're not exercising, there's only so much we can do. And you have to present that in a way that's not offensive. When someone's sitting there morbidly obese, they know they need to lose weight, and they don't need somebody else, one more person saying you need to lose weight.
Right.
It has to be done in the right way, and in a way that offers them some options, not just go lose weight. So actually we have a wellness educator in our practice that can help with that. And sometimes, she deals a lot with leaky gut syndrome. Big topic, can't go into it right now. But, in just dealing with, say, that, you can transform your health, your body, your weight. We're bringing in a weight loss program into the practice because I don't think I have any patient. Every patient says, I'm having trouble losing this extra 10 pounds. Or, once they hit 40, their metabolism isn't the same. And I've just been, doing what I can do hormonally and then sending them out to maybe weight loss centers. Well, we're going to bring that into our practice and have our own weight loss program. It's critical.
It makes sense.
It does. And but it's the most overlooked thing. When people go to the doctor, they want a pill. They want a quick fix. There is no such thing.
And I'm so glad you said that because, we talked about depression in the last segment. And, we talked about hormone therapy. While there isn't really a whole lot of evidence-based information, it doesn't hurt. And you talked about weaning people off those antipsychotics and stuff like that.
Right.
And you brought up a very good point. We're a society that's real quick to look for the pill. What's the magic pill to cure all?
Right.
But it really is, balance in your life. It's a healthy diet. It's exercise. And you know what? Some of the products or some of the things that happen to the human body, you and your business partner, your practice partner, Dr. Webb, can help with. And it's not by taking a pill. It's some of the therapies that you have, hormone therapy being one of them.
Absolutely. And it's balance. You have to address the medically incorrect issues, okay? And then you got to take some onto your own shoulders and eat right and exercise. And that's where you get the optimization. That's where you get the fantastic stories.
Absolutely. So I will tell you, we probably have half the segment left, and I want to make sure I cover some of the things that you're doing in terms of therapies and treatments. And when I had Dr. Webb on, he talked about the O shot, and the O shot was something that women can get, and I'd love for you to
it's just in case people didn't hear last time.
Yeah.
So the O shot is it's actually just a brand name for platelet-rich plasma. PRP. It's been used for many years, and many know it in the orthopedic world, PRP or prolotherapy, but this is actually platelet-rich plasma, one step shy of stem cell therapy. But when you say stem cell therapy, people kind of understand, I think, a little bit more.
You're spinning blood.
Yeah, so we draw patients' blood, we prepare it in a special centrifuge, and separate out the platelet-rich plasma, which is rich in growth factors and healing factors. And so we inject it into the vagina under the bladder to help with urinary leakage, that cough, sneeze type of leaking. We do it also to enhance the orgasm. We inject it into the clitoris to help with orgasm and sexual sensitivity. And it's done painlessly because we do apply.
I was just going to ask that.
I could just imagine the viewers cringing, right? But we use a powerful numbing cream, and then we go ahead and inject a little more numbing. And so it really is basically a painless process, but it's fantastic in its results. And that could be as a standalone procedure for those issues, or you can combine it with some of the other things that we do, like the Genevieve radiofrequency vaginal device, fantastic for vaginal snugging, also for incontinence. And the FemiLift is a laser that we use. Again, these are done without Genevieve and the FemiLift are done without any anesthetic, wide awake, very easy to do. And these are fantastic vaginal and bladder rejuvenation procedures.
We literally have about 20 seconds. What is P-Shot?
P-Shot is the O shot for men. It enhances the blood flow to the penis in a more natural way, and it helps regrow the nerves and the
injecting
blood
platelets.
Flow. Injecting platelets to regenerate your penis.
Wow. I mean, incredible stuff. If you want to learn more about what they're doing at Scottsdale Center for Women's Health, call 480-425-8700 or go up to their website, scottsdalewomenshealth.com. And the other one's vitalityhormones.com.
You got it.
And I got to tell you, I've really enjoyed having you on the show, Russ. And I really enjoyed having your business partner. And I'd love to have you guys back. I feel like we just scratched the surface.
We did. There's a lot we could talk about, and I appreciate being with you in the studio today.
Well, and I appreciate you reinforcing balance in a person's life. And if you're still having challenges, seek help. And
Absolutely.
you guys are people that we can call on and trust. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. Tune in next Friday. We'll be back next Friday. Bye.
There's no place like home. You've been listening to Bob Roth's Health Futures. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call Cypress HomeCare Solutions at 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Or visit cypresshomecare.com. Be sure to join